What's your status? Hey, that's a loaded question. When it comes to our credit cards, you have status. Status means you get more privileges. When it comes to an airline, you get medallion status. You rise in your status as you go on. When it comes to a plane, you get onto a flight, there's also status. Those who sit in economy, then there's economy premium, then there's business, then there's first class. There's all statuses, right? You know, it's interesting because in this week's Torah portion, Moses is in the final days of his life. And he speaks and he tells them, Atem nitzavim hayoim kulchem, you stand today, all of you, in front of God, your God. Rasheichem, your leaders, Shiftechem, your officers, all your men and women and leaders. And then he goes on to the wood choppers and to the water carriers. And the Alshich, one of the commentaries on the Torah, asks a very good question. He says, I don't understand. The Alshich asks a question. He says, I don't understand. You start off saying you stand, all of you, in front of God, and then you go on into the details. But what do you have to tell us all the details? You already said kulchem, which means all of you, which represents all the Jews. So why do you go on to say Rasheichem, your leaders, Shiftechem, your officers, Sheteichem, etc., etc. And the Alshich said something very interesting. You know, in life, what's the first thing you ask someone when you meet them? What do you do for a living? Right? We want to size people up. We size people up by their status. We size people up by their job. We size people up by their finances. We size people up by the people they associate with. The first thing we ask someone is, what do you do for a living? And when the Alshich says, the Torah, Moses is telling the Jewish people that when you stand before God, it's kulchem, you're all equal. All the statuses and the levels and the differences that we speak about are only the way we see it. But in the eyes of God, it's kulchem. We are all equal. And therefore, someone who has a big status, he has a big job, he's a CEO of a company, he's a VC, he's a very successful person, he shouldn't be arrogant and pompous because of his position. And the same is true, somebody who has what we would call a menial job shouldn't think, oh, I'm nothing, because when it comes, when it comes in front of God, it's kulchem. We're all together, we're all equal. God sees us all the same, we're all endowed with a soul from Hashem. You know, when I was in Israel, so my kids would always laugh at me that I have a little bit of my father within me, that I have a conversation with everyone. My kids we would be walking on a trip, if it was in the shuk, or if it was on a hike, and my kids would already be 100 yards in front of me, and I'd still be having a conversation with somebody I met. And they said, Ty, you speak to everyone, it doesn't make a difference who. And the truth is that I loved engaging with people, because you get the best life stories and you find out about people, and everyone has a story, everyone has something unique about them. And one of the things, always when I met people in Israel, I would say, hey tzaddik, ma shlomcha, hey righteous person, how are you doing? And a lot of times, especially Israelis, they would say, ani lo tzaddik, I'm not righteous, why are you calling me a tzaddik? And I always would quote to them what we read from Isaiah this week in the Haftarah. You know, this week in the Haftarah, we read one of the most beautiful Haftarahs. Since Tisha B'Av, we've been reading the 7 Haftarahs of comfort. And in this week's Haftarah, Isaiah says, Va'amech kulam tzadikim. Your nation, God says to Isaiah, is kulam tzadikim, they're all righteous. Neitzer ma'atoi, they are the handiwork of my hands. Masa yadeh, my work, lihispar, that I am proud of. So Isaiah says that every Jew is a righteous person. So when I would sit on the road, I'd be kibitzing, I would say, hey, tzaddik, and they would say, hey, I'm not a tzaddik. I would always quote, Va'amech kulam tzaddikim, we're all righteous. And that's the message Moshe sends, Atem nitzavim hayoim kulchem. You stand today, all of you, before God. When it's in front of God, it's all of us equal. But then, when it comes to our own statuses, we start looking, oh, what does he do? What does she do? You know, I was speaking to a couple of my friends who were in the French Riviera in Cannes, south of France, for summer vacation. And one of them was telling me about the abundance of wealth there is there, a lot of money coming from the Middle East. And in front of the hotel, you would see Bugattis and Rolls Royces, cars that are worth $1 million, $750,000, SUV Rolls Royces. But then there's even something crazier. The way it works is there's these international license plates. And the lower the number, the more expensive it is to get. So one of the Bugattis or one of the Rolls Royces he showed me a picture, had a 99 license plate. The number was just 99. He said just that license plate could cost $1 million. That's status. I mean, you need people, you need to show your license plates. It's not enough that you have the wealthiest car. You also have to have a license plate that proves that I have status. That's when it comes to people. When it comes to Hashem, it's Atem Nitzavim Hayom Kulchem. We all stand equal. And I think that if we talk about a preparation for the high holidays, that's the greatest preparation we could have, is recognizing that we are all equal in front of God, and that God sees us for who we are, not in our status, but what we do to touch another soul, to be sincere, to be spiritual, to be godly, to be kind and giving. God bless you, and have a great